Do you think your life should be more fun? Do you think life should be easier? Hi, this is Gary Hewitt from TechMag Social, and I'm here with John Heaney. You call yourself, hi John.
Hi, pleased to meet you.
Yes, you call yourself a spiritual mechanic.
I certainly do.
Correct, yes. Now I've come to see you, and I got to admit this guy is amazing. He's so good, you don't know what he's doing, but you kind of know he's doing it. Which is really, really interesting. So you owe it to yourself to see this guy. Now John, could you possibly explain what it is that you do?
Well, Gary, every conversation on the planet that's taking place today, it creates an energy and sends out a broadcast. Just like you and I standing here, right?
Yes, okay.
So right now you and I are contributing to world peace. Because
cool.
Because there should be more men meeting each other and having a good time, right?
Excellent, yes.
So my work as a spiritual mechanic is I float among the boxes. Many people have modalities.
Yes.
So there's touch healing,
yes, okay.
therapy, meditation, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And people do these things for themselves and others. And I'm the guy that walks among these and tweaks people, and I help people hone their skills, lower their effort, and remind everybody that 98% of everybody's challenges are cultural. They're not personal.
Okay.
And we live in a culture that says most of your problems are yours, so you try to
yes.
solve them yourself in isolation, and you're not having a good time. So a lot of people feel that they need permission to learn how to play.
Yes, yes.
Right?
What you're saying really resonates with me. The culture that I was brought up with was very much isolating in and of itself, and it's like, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you got to try harder.
Yes.
Right? And that leads to more isolation, and now you're saying, well, no, not your fault. This is the way society is doing.
That's right.
And I think a lot of kids feel this naturally, and that might be like why they start rebelling, is like, oh my God, society's so messed up.
Yes.
And they're sensing the truth of themselves. Yes. Right? And you're actually helping people do this at any age.
Yes.
Excellent.
And people from all walks of life show up with me, whether they're veterinarians or cops or kindergarten teachers or ghosts or people working with horses,
okay,
or taxi drivers or bus drivers, because everybody's in energy, everybody's dealing with it, right?
Yes.
And because we all fight and we think we're isolated, what's very interesting is I say, it's really fun when you become the person you'd love to meet. Right?
Interesting.
So the energy coming off our conversation is going through the camera, through the technology, and out the screen of our viewer who's looking at us, right?
Yeah.
And I can see you smile. You weren't expecting.
No, I wasn't.
But in fact, you see, what's happening with you, now we have at least 3 people, unless there's somebody standing behind you, who are engaged in this conversation. And our viewers are helping create this bubble of our conversation, which is broadcasting, which is doing the work.
Interesting.
So you can relax and you can go out and you can have fun. There's philosophy of life, and there are what I call field trips, which means you take the philosophy and you go out and you apply it.
Okay.
So you can take this to your office or on the bus or in a hospital. A lot of people say to me, I don't like going to hospitals because they're full of pain and suffering and dying and so on. To whom I say, well, become the person you love to meet and say, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of all people in hospitals, on behalf of all families, watch me go into a hospital to bring joy and love and peace and fun.
Wow.
So you've moved from my little tiny problem to being in service.
Ah, excellent. Now you've actually written a book called Ladies and Gentlemen.
Yes.
Right, where you map out that technique. Now I got to say that is powerful. I have worked with John, and I get it. I understand the energy shift that happens when you say something like this. You're putting yourself energetically in the right frame of mind to make something happen. So let's just take a moment and go back through that statement.
Yes.
Can you step back and explain that statement a little bit so that our audience members can understand the power of that going to the hospital, but how the statement, ladies and gentlemen, frames that energetically.
I worked with one case of a 13-year-old who'd almost died 3 times at the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario. And his mother brought him, and we started working together. And she said to me that I'm deathly afraid of taking my son to the hospital, and I break out into a sweat and I become nervous because of this. And I told her, I said, all you have to do is remember that when you walk through the main entrance to the hospital, just say, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of all mothers who have kids in CHEO, watch me do this. And she said, how am I going to remember this? And I said, don't worry about it. So a couple of weeks later, she called me up and she said, you'll never guess what happened. I became nervous and I went through the same thing, and I'm sweating and we're getting into the door, and we walk through the door. I'm holding my son's hand, and all of a sudden it almost seemed like you tapped me on the shoulder. And I remembered to say it, and I said it in my head. And my son squeezed my hand and said, Mom, what's happening to your energy? It's just changed.
Wow.
So you're on. And the little kids in the hospital can feel this off the people and off the adults.
Yes.
And if you were a kid in a hospital bed, you'd love to meet somebody like that.
Correct.
Therefore, you have become the person you'd love to meet.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Now, you've written many books, another one, The Thunder Within.
Yes.
Can you tell us just a brief bit about that?
I've always been a bit of a troublemaker. I was born...
I can't imagine that, John.
I was born weighing half a pound, and I lived in the Montreal General for about the first year of my life, thinking about what I was going to do. But it also gave me an opportunity to be separate from people, and I'm in the incubator looking at people being totally silly, and thinking, well, I've got to change this. And I came out with a few anomalies with cerebral palsy and so forth, which I lived with for a while. When I was 35, an electrical shock went through my brain and I lost all my functions instantly.
Wow.
And when they studied me, they found out what was going on, and they said, well, considering how you were born, how could you do what you've done? And we don't know how to put you back together again. So it was a very puzzling...
Scary words.
It was pretty devastating.
Yeah.
But it turns out I had a couple of conditions that now had names, and nobody had any answers. And so I started on with, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of all people with all these conditions, watch what happens when I start to show people how this is done so other people can learn how to do this so they can do it shorter than I can. And it worked.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
So from around the world came the team of people from all walks of life putting little pieces in, and we discovered that one of the things that was happening is we were having fun.
Okay.
And so when you practice your craft, not from fixing people, but having a really fantastic time, whether you're working with cancer or stage fright or fear of animals or not being able to write or whatever you want to talk about, as you do your work as an example, life and the atmosphere can hardly wait to work with you. Because as I say, in our society, if you were an angel floating above, floating above most cities,
pay attention to this quote. I love this one.
You'd probably need a barf bag, because you'd be looking down at all these people screwing around with themselves and hating themselves and bothered and trying to get out of stuff and all that kind of stuff, and it looks like a vibration.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, down there in Canada or someplace, you see two guys having a really good time, and the energy goes, over there in that studio, something's going on.
Yes.
And the energy turns and comes to the studio. And I know you, at home, are feeling this. So that's how it works.
Excellent. Yes. Now, if you want to participate in something like this with John, you actually have these free sessions that you have like once or twice a week that are open for people to come in and just experience what you do.
Well, what I've set up is I do one-on-one work with people. And the evening sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays, it is $15 for the evening.
Yeah, more than worth it.
And,
way more.
and one of the things we do in the circle is we're creating a totally new culture because our society doesn't have a culture where everybody's meeting each other and saying, I like who you are.
Oh.
Right? And I honor your abilities. The old way is, what are your abilities? What are my abilities? But nobody says, why don't we take your abilities plus my abilities, put them together, and do something really cool.
Amazing.
Right?
Yes, absolutely amazing.
And when I'm working with people, when the phone rings, it's really fun, and a lot of people say, Mr. Heaney, I don't know how to put this.
Yes.
I don't know how to start this.
Yes.
But, nobody's going to believe me but. So they're either embarrassed,
Yes.
okay, it may be a social thing, but it might be a rising intuition. It might be an ability as a healer. It might be as an autistic person who can see all the energy off other people. Okay? And so I say, well, let's get started.
Cool.
So part of my practice is honing the skills of practitioners. Part of it is working with kids and teenagers. Part of it is working with people in their 80s and 90s. And it's also looking at your public life as a manager or, you know, what you do. And how to bring this into the workplace. Because in the workplace, people say, well, the workplace, anything's the workplace,
Yep. Yeah, they go to work and park their brains.
Yes. And when you do a ladies and gentlemen in a workplace, that's a field trip.
Okay.
To apply this,
Yes.
and things really start having fun. I remember one time working in a major corporation, walking down a long hallway, and two people were coming at me, a man and a woman. The woman was a vice president of this corporation and very pregnant. So I walked past them, and they nodded, and she knew me, and they said good morning. And I said, good morning, you three, and kept on walking. And I could feel what was happening behind me as they passed. And they stopped, and they turned, and she said, oh my goodness, that's the first time my baby has kicked.
Wow.
You see? Because becoming the person you'd love to meet,
Yes.
if you were a baby in a womb, wouldn't you want somebody to say good morning to you?
Absolutely.
Therefore, that's how it works.
Amazing. John, this has been wonderful. Thank you very much for coming in today.
Okay.
All right, now we've got a feature page for you up on TechMag Social.
Thank you.
Right, and this video is going to be there available, and there are links on how to get a hold of you, how to contact you, how to do the sessions, whatever. All of that information is going to be up there. So thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in today.
Have fun.
I am.